7 trawlers, all of them simple enough that one person can run the whole boat without ever needing a second pair of hands. No tangled systems, no layouts that quietly assume there's always someone on the foredeck. No boats where you spend half the day wishing the wheel could steer itself while you sort out a line. These are the boats designed around one person doing everything, casting off, running the boat all day, bringing it back into a tight slip, and dealing with whatever decides to break in the middle of the night. Because that's the part nobody mentions when they sell you on the dream. When you live alone on a boat, there's no one to take the helm while you check the engine, no one to handle a line while you stand at the controls. And when something fails at 3 in the morning in a rolling anchorage, there's only one person who's going to crawl down into the engine room with a flashlight, and that person is you. That changes what makes a boat worth owning. It needs to be simple enough that you can actually handle it alone, reliable enough that it doesn't leave you stranded, and forgiving enough that the inevitable small mistakes don't turn into bigger ones. The boats I'm going to walk through aren't picks from a magazine list. These are the trawlers you actually see in the anchorages where solo cruisers gather, from the Pacific Northwest down through Mexico, across the Gulf, up the East Coast, and through the Caribbean. The boats that have crossed oceans with one person aboard and brought them home in one piece. One of these has more documented solo circumnavigations than any other affordable trawler. We'll get to which one. Starting at number 7, the Albin 27, $12,000 to $20,000. Swedish-built, diesel cruiser, mostly from the 70s and 80s, and at 27 feet she's a sensible size for one person to live on without ever feeling overwhelmed. From the helm, the bow is within reach, the stern is right behind you, and you can step out to adjust a fender without leaving the controls. That sounds small until you realize how often that matters when you're alone. This boat was built for the North Sea, which tells you what you need to know about how she was put together. Solid fiberglass, deep V forward, and the Swedish yards overbuilt her because they understood cold water and what happens to people who get into trouble far from help. The engine is usually a Volvo Penta MD2 or MD3, 2 or 3 cylinder diesel that sounds like a tractor and runs about as long as one. Slow, loud, simple, and the kind of engine you can actually work on yourself without being a mechanic. Parts are still around. Inside she gives you more than you'd guess. A proper V-berth forward, a small saloon, a 2-burner galley, a head with a shower. The pilot house is enclosed and warm, which matters far more than people understand until they've stood watch in cold rain for 6 hours. Fuel runs about 40 gallons, giving you around 250 miles at 6 knots. Coastal range, island hopping range, the kind of distance most solo cruisers actually run anyway. Number 6, the Tollycraft 30, $15,000 to $25,000. A Pacific Northwest boat from the 70s and 80s, originally aimed at commercial salmon fishermen. That detail matters because fishermen can't tolerate complicated systems or downtime. Their boats had to work. And what works for a guy making a living on the water tends to work just as well for someone living on it. Solid fiberglass hull, deep V, dry ride even when the weather gets unpleasant. She tracks straight, which means you're not fighting the wheel constantly. You can set a course and step away briefly to do something else without the boat wandering off and putting you broadside to a sea. That alone separates a good solo boat from a bad one. The engine is usually a single Perkins or a Ford Lehman, both well known for running essentially forever as long as you keep the oil clean and don't let them overheat. Purely mechanical. Nothing electronic to fail at the worst moment. The interior is functional rather than fancy. V-berth, small saloon, 2-burner galley, a head. The cabin's enclosed, visibility is honest, and the helm is straightforward. About 60 gallons of fuel, roughly 350 miles of range. Enough that you're not constantly thinking about the next fuel dock. Number 5. The Willard 30, 18 to 25,000. Designed by Bill Garden in California in the 60s and 70s, and there's a quiet cult around this boat among solo sailors, for reasons that hold up the moment you spend time aboard one. She was drawn for people going offshore alone and needing a boat that would look after them while they slept. Solid fiberglass, full keel, protected rudder, hull shape borrowed from traditional workboats that have been proven over a couple of centuries. She doesn't pound, doesn't roll excessively in a beam sea, and that matters more than people understand. Fatigue is the real enemy when you sail alone. A boat that beats you up in a chop wears you down faster than weather ever will. The Willard doesn't do that. She'll hold a course with very little input. You can lash the helm and step below for short stretches without the boat wandering off. And there aren't many 30-footers you can say that about. Engine is usually a Perkins or Lehman, 6 knots, less than a gallon an hour. Engine access is reasonable. The pilot house is the strong point. Big windows, good visibility, helm where you can see what you need to without standing up, chart table within reach. About 100 gallons of fuel, 600 to 700 miles of range on a 30-foot boat. That's serious range for the size. These don't come up often, and when they do, they move quickly. Number 4. The Monk 36, 22 to 30,000. Ed Monk design, built in the Pacific Northwest in the 60s and 70s, drawn for exactly the conditions that test a solo sailor. Cold water, fog, big distances between safe harbours, weather that doesn't cooperate. Full displacement hull, heavy, stable, and she doesn't get pushed around by wind or sea. The ride is settled. She finds her rhythm in a seaway and just keeps going, which is what you want when you're tired and the weather is building. Usually a single Ford Lehman, around 7 knots a gallon an hour. The kind of engine that was built for continuous duty and rewards you for treating it well. Inside, she feels larger than the numbers suggest. Big V-berth, saloon with a proper dinette, full galley, a head with a shower. One person has more than enough room without the boat feeling cavernous and lonely. The pilot house is comfortable, instrumentation is logical, visibility is excellent, and critically she handles well at the dock. Heavy boat with a full keel doesn't blow sideways the way a lighter boat does, and a single engine is predictable. You can put her into a slip alone, in moderate wind, without the kind of drama that ruins your morning. 300 to 400 gallons of fuel, depending on tankage. That's 1,000 to 1,400 miles at 7 knots. Pacific Northwest to Alaska, California down into Mexico, real range. Number 3. The Marine Trader 34, 20 to 30,000. Taiwan built, 70s and 80s, and one of the most common boats you'll find under solo owners. There's a reason for that. She works. Heavy fiberglass, full keel, protected rudder, built during the period when the Taiwanese yards were still building for quality rather than price. The ride is forgiving. She handles following seas well, which is not something every trawler does, and she tracks straight enough that the autopilot works the way it should. For someone running alone, that's everything. You can't steer for 16 hours, and a boat that fights the autopilot will exhaust you long before the weather does. Single Ford Lehman, either the 120 or the 135, and both are legendary. Parts are everywhere. The interior is traditional, teak joinery done properly, full galley, head with tub shower, layouts that make sense after you've lived aboard for a while, rather than just step through at a boat show. The pilot house is the heart of the boat, and heat or air conditioning is standard on most. About 300 gallons of fuel, 800 to 1,000 miles of range. That's real cruising capability. Number 2. The Grand Banks 32. 25 to 30,000. This is the boat that defined the classic trawler look, and it earned the reputation honestly. They were built right from the start, and the ones still on the water are still on the water because the design works and the construction held up. Semi-displacement hull, so she can move up to about 10 knots if you push her, though no solo owner I know runs her like that. 7 or 8 is where the fuel economy lives, and that's where the boat is happy. She handles following seas better than most full displacement trawlers, tracks straight, holds an autopilot course well. Usually a single Lehman 120. The interior is traditional and finished with the kind of care you don't see in new boats at any price. She feels like a home rather than accommodation. She handles at the dock the way a single-screw boat should. Predictable, manageable, no surprises. And the owner network around Grand Banks is one of the strongest in the trawler world. Parts are around, mechanics know them, and there's always someone who's already solved whatever problem you're working through. 250 to 300 gallons, 7 to 900 miles of range, and when you're ready to sell, she moves. Grand Banks hold their value better than almost anything else in this category. And number 1, the Cady Krogan 42. 28 to 35,000 at the lower end of the market, sometimes a good deal more for a clean one. The Krogan 42 takes the top spot because Jim Krogan drew her specifically for long-distance cruising, and a meaningful number of these boats have actually been sailed around the world by single-handers. That's not a marketing line, it's documented. More Krogan 42s have completed solo circumnavigations than any other trawler in this price range. Full displacement, heavy, genuinely seaworthy. In open water she moves the way an offshore boat should move, settled and predictable, and she doesn't get thrown around by waves the way lighter boats do. The autopilot works beautifully because she wants to hold a course. You can rest, cook, sleep in short stretches, and trust the boat to keep doing what you set her to do. Single Lehman or Cummins, 7 knots, about a gallon an hour. Engine access is honest, and a single person can do routine work without help. Inside she's spacious in a way that surprises people. Master forward, saloon, full galley, 2 heads, an aft cabin. For one person that sounds excessive, but it isn't. Having different spaces for different uses means the boat never feels cluttered, and you have somewhere to retreat to when you need it. The pilot house is laid out the way a solo boat should be. Visibility in every direction, instrumentation within reach, chart table next to the helm, a seat you can sit in for hours without getting stiff. She's surprisingly easy at the dock for her size. Single screw, heavy enough not to blow around, and most have a bow thruster as standard, which is genuinely useful when you're tying up alone in a crosswind. 6 to 800 gallons of fuel, 2,200 to 2,800 miles of range at 7 knots. California to Hawaii with reserves. That's not coastal cruising, that's ocean crossing, on your own, in a boat that was actually built for it. 7 boats, none of them theoretical, all of them showing up year after year under solo owners who actually live this life. Living aboard alone is not for most people, and these boats reflect that honestly. They're simple because complicated systems become your problem the moment something goes wrong and there's no one to help. They're reliable because there's no rescue button when you're 3 days out. And they're forgiving because mistakes happen when you're tired and the boat needs to keep you safe while you sort it out. If you're thinking about going this direction, my honest advice is to not start with the boat. Start with yourself. Spend real time alone on the water and find out whether you actually want this. The boat is the easy part. Being alone with your own company for days or weeks at a time, handling everything yourself, with no one to share any of it with, is the part that decides whether this life suits you. If it does, any of these 7 will take you wherever you're willing to go. If you've owned one of these, or you're running one now, I'd genuinely like to hear which one you trust and where you think I've called it wrong. That's where these conversations get useful, when the people who actually live aboard weigh in. And if you want more straight, practical breakdowns of boats and the realities of owning them, subscribe and stick around. That's what this channel is for.